Hi folks, I'm Craig Taylor, and as always a huge thanks for joining me here on my YouTube channel, The Bushcraft Padawan. If you enjoy watching this video, like the look of my channel, think that it could add value to what you do, and you're not yet a subscriber, please do click on that subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner of the screen and help me grow my channel. If you're already a subscriber, a massive thank you. If you like this video, then please at any point during it, click that thumbs up button and show me that you like it. Cheers. A couple of months ago, in fact it was probably the end of 2018, I came out to this very area and recorded an all-dayer video. I'm linking to it in the top right hand corner of your screen. Part of that video saw me trialling for the very first time digging a gypsy well, an Indian well, a sip well, a coyote well, whatever it is that you want to call it, digging a gypsy well for the first time. The process worked. I was able to dig a hole, filled it with water, I was able to scoop water out, process it further to make it safe for drinking. It worked. But it wasn't perfect. I did say in that video that I wish I'd dug it deeper. I wish I'd dug it left to right, back to front, wider, to allow more water to gather and to allow me to scoop the water out without disturbing the sediment in the bottom or on the sides. And I said in that video that I always wanted to come back and reattempt digging that gypsy well with the benefit of hindsight. And that's what this video is about today. In that video, I used a small, cheap garden hand trowel for digging, and it actually broke after just a few scoops of earth. It made the process much more laborious. So I fashioned a primitive digging stick today to help me dig it out, and here it is. I fashioned the handle out of some seasoned ash, and the shovel part itself, the digging part itself, I have hand forged using old Coke tins that I found discarded. So there's my hand forged primitive digging tool that I will be using today. What? For those of you who aren't familiar with the concept of a gypsy well, an Indian well, a sip well, a coyote well, I think I'm just going to call it a gypsy well for the rest of the video. For those of you who aren't familiar with this concept, it's the notion of finding a damp, boggy-ish type of ground, somewhere where you suspect there is water, but that it's under the surface. So somewhere that feels possibly quite marshy, quite boggy, quite damp. You then dig down, you dig a hole into the ground. And the theory goes that as you're digging down to meet the water table. And that water table, it doesn't rise up to meet you, but you're digging down to expose that water table. You dig a hole that is deep enough, that is wide enough to allow that to fill up with a decent volume of water, seeping in both from below and from the sides. It seeps in, and as it's seeping in, again, the theory is that the ground itself, to a degree, is filtering the water. Now that doesn't mean that the water that collects in there is safe to drink by any stretch, but it's partially filtering the water. You let that hole fill up, you empty it out, and you do that a couple of times, and then once it's filled up a second, third, fourth time, you allow everything to settle, you allow any sediment that's in there to settle to the bottom of the hole, and you carefully scoop out the partially filtered water. You can then process it further using something like a brown bag or a millbank bag. You can boil it and then make it ultimately safe to drink. So that's the general concept. I wanted to outline that just in case why I'm doing it or how I'm doing it or where I'm doing it is lost in the rest of the video. That's what I'm doing. I'm digging a hole in a boggy area to fill up with water, to then collect and process that water further. In a nutshell, I've got some boggy ground just in front of me, but behind you. I'm going to refocus the camera there, and I shall start digging. So there we have the hole that I've just taken probably 2 minutes, something like that, to dig. If you look around the edges, it's going to be probably difficult to draw your attention to, but let me try and zoom in. Just here, where the old Mark 1 finger is there, you may be able to, yeah, you can probably pick that up on camera. Just underneath my finger, you can actually see the water flowing in quite quickly. Now it's doing that all around the edges of this hole that I've dug. That doesn't mean by any stretch of the imagination that I would take the water straight from here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to allow this to build up, to fill up, to reach its level. I'm going to scoop the water out, I'm going to throw the water to one side. I'm going to repeat that several times over and over again. What I'm hoping will happen is that all the digging that I've done where I've disturbed the earth and clouded the water, I'm hoping over a period of time all of that debris and that clay and mud that I've disturbed will sink to the bottom, and that the water that I will get flowing in will be much cleaner in appearance. Of course, that doesn't mean to say that it's clean and safe to drink, but that's the plan. And that's all I'm doing. I'm as quickly but as carefully as I possibly can scooping this water out, throwing it well away. Don't want it running straight back in from the surface. As you can see, for just a few minutes digging, there's an incredible volume of water that's built up very quickly with very little digging effort. A part of me does wonder if that's actually a downfall. A part of me does wonder if it's filled up so quickly, is there very little filtering taking place via the soil and the sand and the clay itself? I don't know. That's why I come out and do these videos to find out. But yeah, a massive, huge quantity of water in here. If you could imagine this being full and the sediment having settled to the bottom, it'd be an amazing amount of water to call upon as part of your further filtering process. My mug is actually touching the bottom now, so I'm going to carry on filtering, but I'm very conscious that if I'm disturbing the bottom of this, I'm actually undoing some of the work that gravity's already performed for me, which is to allow the sediment to filter or to sink to the bottom. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. My mug was pretty much flat on the bottom, touching the bottom, so I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to let this fill up. Probably going to do what I've just done then on another 1 or 2 occasions. Then I'm going to walk away and let it all settle and come back and see what it looks like maybe after an hour or 2. Hopefully it will look a lot clearer than it does at the moment, because of the filtering action of the soil and, like I say, the actual sediment itself sinking to the bottom of this well. That's the theory anyway. I'm just coming to the end of my second bail out. So you've seen me bail this out once. This is now the second time that I've bailed this out. It's quite incredible. And in the time it takes me to fill the mug up, throw it and put it back in, it's almost gained another mug's worth of water. It's almost impossible for me to actually get this to the bottom as such. Very, very quick fill up. And as I said earlier in the video, I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing. Time will tell. It's 10 past 11, so I'm going to give that until at least 10 past 12, maybe half past 12, an hour and 20 minutes, just to fill up again, which it's already done. I can see it's filled up, but to allow that water to actually, or to allow the sediment in the water to filter down. I've taken a photograph of what it looks like at the moment, so it'll be interesting to see later on in the video to do a compare and contrast between what an hour and 20 minutes worth of letting it settle has on the clarity of the water. I may have let time slip me by. It was 11 hours, I think, before. It's now 17 hours. So the best part of just over 3 hours, that gypsy well has had time to settle. Now, I've left it for 3 hours, not because it needed that amount of time to fill up. You probably saw on camera earlier on, it was filling up as quickly as I could empty it. I've left it for 3 hours because A, I've been elsewhere in this woodland doing other things, and B, when I came back to it after an hour, it was still incredibly cloudy. So 3 hours later, let's take a closer look. Well, as you can see, still incredibly cloudy. So either it needs a lot longer to settle, or that's just the standing water colour is that colour. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to very carefully use my mug to just scoop a little bit out, because I've often been caught out before. I've looked at a puddle like this and thought, my God, that's grafted. But actually, when you scoop it out, it appears much clearer, and often it's the sediment on the bottom that you're looking at that makes things look much dirtier than they are. I'm not entirely sure that's going to be the case this time round, but if I just scoop some out, let's have a look. Okay, so if you look in that mug now, yes, it is still very discoloured. It is not like you would get out of a tap at home. But let's just remember, the purpose of this gypsy well isn't to provide you with crystal clear tap water style of drinking water. It's to provide you with this ready source of water that you can then filter and process down further to be cleaner and more purified. So I was hoping that I was going to come back to this and find it much clearer. That wasn't the case, but actually, let's look at the positive in this. I've now got a ready, go-to, quickly refillable, you saw how quickly it was refilling earlier on, water source that I could call upon in the future. I guess it's easy to become a little disgruntled and disillusioned when you've got an expectation about the way that something is going to work out. I had no doubt at all that that gypsy well would fill up, no doubt at all. The moment I started digging, I knew that was going to be the case. I was hoping that the water that it would collect would be visually much clearer than it was. So I had that expectation, and as we've just seen, that expectation was not correct. It was misaligned. And I think on those occasions, you know, it would have been easy to write that off as a failure. And indeed, if that was the only purpose of digging a gypsy well, it was a failure. But remember, a gypsy well, a standing well, a sip well, a coyote well, whatever you want to call it, if it can filter water as it part of it filling up, great. And it does do that, but you're not drinking straight from that. I would take that, I would put it through a coarse filter system, something like a brown bag or a millbank bag. I would then boil that water. The purpose of that is to allow me to obtain water that I can then further process down. So I think, you know, when we come out and we do these bushcraft things, we set out with an expectation, with a plan, with an end goal envisaged, and if that's not met to the letter, we can sometimes look upon that as failure. And actually I think sometimes we need to step back and actually think to ourselves, okay, maybe my expectation was misaligned and what I've still achieved is good and is positive. So over to you then. The woods that I have permission to come into has no running water whatsoever. It only has standing water at certain times of the year, so it is a very dry woodland, and I mean that from the perspective of being able to easily source water, which is why I look to either bring the water out with me or to use something like a gypsy well. What do you do though? When you go out, when you go into your woodland, do you have the benefit of a stream, of a creek, of a river that you can source fast flowing water from? Do you have to dig for it like I do? Or do you even have to pack it in because there simply isn't anywhere to obtain the water from, either easily or with a little bit of digging effort? Let me know in the comments below, how do you go about solving the water problem when you go out doing this bushcrafty sort of thing? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks as always for watching. Like, share, subscribe, all the usual gaff that I talk about at the end of the video, and I look forward to seeing you very, very soon in my next video. Thank you for watching. Cheers.